Hello, welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am really excited to get a recap today. You can see I am the only one virtually here. Pavan and our special guest are still hanging out from the big party last night. So I want to hear everything. You had Jake Paul at your house. Tell me everything.
So we were at Vivek had an event here last night for his company Strive Capital. And so a bunch of the community here was together at dinner with him and all of us at by the beach. And so Jake Paul was there, Sugar Shane was there, and then the party kept on going, and then we closed down the bar, and then it moved into my house. Right. And then Jake Paul was then at my house hanging out until I think it went on to like 2 a.m. So
I was asleep.
So Steve and I are a little bit drunk today.
Yeah, so I'm Steve Kinard. I'm the president of the AI Innovation Association, innovationconnect.ai. And this is my first time ever in Puerto Rico. I kind of come down here to meet up with Pavan, not knowing what to expect. And we end up having dinner with Vivek Ramaswamy and then random house party here at Pavan's place. And Jake Paul's just hanging out. And I'm like, this was not on my bingo card. But Puerto Rico is a pretty cool place. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so Pavan, you showed him a typical Monday night in the life of Pavan Agarwal in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, this is a typical night where I actually, if I leave the house, most nights, most days, I'm stuck in my office room in front of my computer, banging away. So when I do get out, then this is all insanity breaks loose.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Who do we have here?
Special guest are Bob Diamond. No relationship to Jamie Dimon, right?
Correct. Nor the Bob Diamond of Barclays Capital, whose emails I get from time to time. So what are you guys talking about?
Well, we're just talking about the
We're
party
just getting
last
started
night.
right now. I'm trying to get the details on Pavan's big party last night. Impromptu party.
Yes, it was epic. What time did you guys stay up until?
Like till 2 o'clock. And another special guest star. Sam, come on over.
How are you?
Hi.
Do you recognize me?
Yes, I do. Nice to see you.
Likewise, nice to see you. Yeah.
We're just having a star-studded event here.
He's bringing everyone back
podcast.
to, Puerto Rico. So, yeah. See, that's the deal with the podcast. It was in the fine line.
That's not a terrible fine line to find out is in your contract.
I agree.
You must go to paradise.
So for the guests watching, Sam was on our podcast about 3 weeks ago, and he owns and runs the largest network of assisted living facilities built it from scratch. So today's podcast is with Steve Kinard, president of AI Innovation Council, and our walk-in guest, Bob Diamond. Tell the audience what does Bob Diamond do?
So what I do, I'm a lawyer that helps people who lost houses at foreclosure get back extra money that's left over. So we do that across the country, helping people out and helping get restarted. And because houses have gone up so much in value, there's often a lot of money left over. So, helping
and if
people
anyone in
sometimes
our
homeless.
audience needs a resource such as yourself for a client, how can they get a hold of you?
Just bobdiamond.com. But basically the answer for them, for anybody, is if you know someone who has lost a house to any kind of foreclosure, just check to see if the sale price is higher than the debt that's owed against it. Often it is these days. That extra money is available for the former homeowner. They just have to apply for it. And often that's life-changing money because you get someone like that, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, helps them get started again in life. And it's just a little known thing. And it's just important that people know.
So bobdiamond.com.
Yep. So anyway, all the best, you guys. Keep rocking.
Rock and roll, Bob. We got one more special guest. Come on, just might as well say hi, Bill.
Our audience, you guys may remember Bill from a podcast. When did we do that podcast? Maybe about a month ago.
Yeah.
And you also got a chance to attend and speak a little bit at the latest Mindset Summit in Las Vegas. So thanks for being there.
Oh, no, thank you.
What did you think of the party last night?
The party last night, number one, it's been a long time since I hung out with a group that went to 2 in the morning. I made it to 1 in the morning. And, but the actual pre-party before, the group was excellent, very grounded folks that have done some very significant things in their lives to make this a better world. And many of them have good focus on what they're going to do to make sure our country stays a strong democracy, but also a fluid capitalistic society in a very good way.
Excellent. And that's a perfect segue to what we'll be talking about with the work that Steve and Pavan are doing together here.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the cameo. So very honored to have Steve as my guest today, both guests on the podcast and at my house. Now, Steve is just an interesting story, a diverse background. You're going to be very interested in, and maybe a little surprised to hear about his background. And you're running for state
representative in Texas. That's right.
Yeah, in the Dallas. It's a district in the Dallas area, and your major involvement in North American Blockchain Council. That's where we met. And now we've decided, myself, Steve, and Lee Bratchard decided to start AI Innovation Council, or innovationconnect.ai, which is the domain, innovationconnect.ai. Check it out. And the whole idea is to keep AI free and open and not let it go the way of social media, where it is controlled by a few elites and it's pushing a specific agenda. So we want to make sure that AI remains a free speech, open platform for us all. So Steve, why don't you talk about how Innovation Connect works? And well, before we go into business, let's learn about Steve, the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Kinard.
Sure. So I appreciate that, Pavan. You know, my life's kind of been a story of different chapters, just kind of driven by an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always enjoyed taking on new things. And so a little bit about my background. I'm a born and raised proud Texas native. Went to Texas A&M undergrad, and my mom's actually from Panama, from the Central American country of Panama. And so after my undergraduate studies were complete, I decided I wanted to go to Panama for what I thought was going to be a couple of months, but that was in 2008. And so the whole world changed from an economic perspective, and a couple of months turned out to be over 3 years that I was in Panama, but it was really a blessing. I got to work in estate planning there and financial services. It's when I kind of launched a professional career in finance, and I got to really perfect my Spanish and meet a lot of my family down there. So never really saw that chapter coming in life, but it was tremendously enriching. And, I'll always treasure that. It also kind of taught me, though, that I'm an American, and I felt the desire to come back to the United States. And so I actually went to business school in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University. And while I enjoyed that, that also kind of taught me that I'm a Texan. And so at that time I had graduated, I've been working there in banking, and I wanted to be part of starting an oil and gas company. So I kind of turned to a new chapter, moved to Houston, teamed up with a couple of engineers, and starting a new company from nothing. And we were fortunate enough to be able to get a number of investors behind us and deployed over $100 million in the oil field, which sounds great, but part of that journey was the ups and downs of the oil industry. And so it taught me to kind of develop an ability to weather the cycles of the business cycle. And we were able to do that in that company and come out the other side quite strong. And after a process, we decided to sell most of those assets. And so I found myself moving from Houston to Dallas to get back into banking. focused on energy. And that's where I was going into COVID, which again kind of changed the whole world. So in the depths of COVID, I heard about Bitcoin mining in the oil field, which sounded at the time to me, frankly, ridiculous. But as I kind of opened up my mind to that, and I had experience with the struggles of wasted energy in oil and gas operations, and Bitcoin mining was really just a way to take a wasted resource and find a market for it. That's what pulled me into Bitcoin, but then it became more of a philosophical thing for me. And this is germane to the AI side of things, because I really saw that as the global economy becomes more and more digital, a technology like Bitcoin is a critical part of securing private property rights in a digitally native economy, because the federal government has an ability to censor and seize assets when you have a centralized custodian like a large bank, or to debase your holdings by printing trillions of dollars, which they've continued to do. And so I just saw, I was philosophically attracted to that. I thought it was important. And that's when I started working with the Texas Blockchain Council. We were the hosts of the North American Blockchain Summit, which is where we met. And I give Pavan the credit for kind of having the vision at that time for a need for a similar association with a similar commitment to that philosophy of decentralization, private property rights, and pushing back against centralized government control over really anything in our lives. And we were pretty busy at that time. We really weren't able to take that up. But in the ensuing months after this idea kind of came to the surface, we saw some pretty unbelievable actions taken, particularly by Microsoft, to take what was a nonprofit, OpenAI, that was developing artificial intelligence supposedly for the benefit of the world, and then all of a sudden became a for-profit entity that went from being open source, open for the innovative ecosystem, to being closed off and controlled by one of the largest technology companies in the world. And for me, that was a watershed moment. That was really a tremendous shift in the landscape of AI as a technology. At the same time, I kind of had my own awakening because I had done a lot of work in summarizing documents and translating them from English to Spanish. So I had a fair amount of experience with that kind of professional work. I was playing around with some different AI products at the time and was astonished at how much better that technology had gotten at summarizing what could be long or complex documents, making them succinct, putting it into bullet point format, and then translating it effectively to Spanish. And everybody's got their light bulb moment of kind of, wow, this could really be a powerful disruptive technology. And that was mine. So all of this was happening kind of in the sequence of a couple of months. And all of a sudden I felt compelled and kind of picked up the phone and said, Pavan, I think you had a powerful idea. I think the marketplace needs it. Entrepreneurs that are building and using AI have a different set of interests and a different kind of network, as opposed to huge incumbent technology companies like Microsoft. I don't think an association can serve both of those interests. And I think that's where we really aligned philosophically, and the feedback has been tremendously positive. And that has all led to launching this new entity, AI Innovation Association, at innovationconnect.ai. And it's just a really exciting time. I think every week it feels like we see some big new development in the AI ecosystem. And so I'm more convinced than ever that the time is right for this. And really just thank you, Pavan, for first having the idea, but then having the kind of execution side of it to help us really put this into motion.
Yeah, that's super exciting. So where did he go to undergraduate?
Texas A&M.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's pretty smart then.
Yeah. Somehow I made it through.
No way I would have ever gotten in. So, so it's interesting because you and I have kind of similar multicultural background.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in the U.S., right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, in Texas.
Yeah. No, I was born in India, but I immigrated when I was wee little. Yeah. So almost born. Yep. Not quite. Not quite. So I can never run for president. Yeah. So how does that multicultural, you know, that multicultural upbringing and that different, you've had the benefit of seeing two very different cultures, right? On your mom's side, the, you know, Central American culture,
Yep.
and your dad, I assume he's Texan?
Texan all the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how did that upbringing and that perspective, how did that change your and shape your perspective today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can't recommend highly enough to really everyone that if you have the opportunity to live in a different country, to take it, because it highlights kind of two sides. The first is things that you'll interact with in a different culture that you really like, that can move you towards those things. And the top thing I think of in terms of Panamanian culture that's always had an impact on me is how family centric the culture is. People spend a lot of time, not just with their nuclear family, but with your cousins and your second cousins and the broader family. And there's almost always a birthday party or a wedding, or you rarely go even a number of weeks without a large extended family gathering. And that's not typically the case for a lot of American families. Part of that too is it's just a much bigger country. You know, Panama's a place, everybody's close, and it creates a level of close-knit community and family there that's really powerful when you experience that. And you know, on the flip side, it also, I felt, you know, by the end of my couple of years, I felt a sense of homesickness. I loved living in Panama. It was a phenomenal experience, but you have that discrete sense of like, there is such a thing as home for me, and it gives you a real appreciation for that, of being from a certain place, in my case Texas, and sometimes you have to spend some time away to then really come to appreciate that. You know, the other thing that I've always carried with me is you get better by seeking out a diversity of opinions and people. Even if you disagree, you still learn something. And it's a powerful concept both in life and in business, and I would say in politics as well, that you should seek out a diverse set of opinions, interact with that, sharpen your own way of thinking, and really welcome that kind of opportunity. So I don't know what life has in store for me in the future, but I've always loved traveling internationally, and particularly to Spanish-speaking countries, because I speak the language, and so you can interact with that in a way that, you know, that you can't without that ability to speak the language. So it's a big part of who I am. Often people are surprised because I maybe don't look like the typical Panamanian American, but I do carry that with me, and it's just been fun, even being here in Puerto Rico, just speaking with people I meet in the street or in the car, and just hearing their story, and it's an enrichment in life.
Now, we don't normally get into politics in this podcast, but since you are running for office, can you talk a little bit about your political views and your perspective, and how, but more importantly, and I think this is the interesting part, how your Panamanian half shaped those views?
Yeah, I mean, there's two key comments I'll make along those lines. I just taking a step back, I never really saw a life of political involvement for myself. It's a calling I have felt really very recently. And the top reason for that is not because I want to advance the interests of one party over the other. It's really more the continued centralization of control that I see in the United States, in a government that grows and grows and grows and creates more and more regulatory hurdles for anything that you're trying to do. And I saw that a lot in my work around Bitcoin and blockchain technology, where there was just kind of needless persecution of that industry. and I see it even in our education system that's more and more centralized through the government permitting of curriculums and trying to control, every last thing that happens in a school. And so often the way that I characterize that is I'm involved because I believe in liberty through decentralization. If we give people more control at the community and local level, the outcomes will be better. And that's what animates me and gets me up in the morning to be a part of that political process. Now, the other question is the kind of multicultural aspect. And that is something that I really want to shine a light on. I live in a very diverse area north of Dallas. There's a lot of different communities, a lot of immigrants there. And I think that's a great thing. I think that we are fortunate to have an opportunity to build a prosperous community because we have the benefit of a workforce that gets stronger and stronger by bringing the best and brightest people around the world through a legal process. Emphasis on legal process, just like my mom was able to come to study on a scholarship to the United States, and so we're proud Americans, and I think that America should be proud to welcome people from all around the world that want to pursue their dreams, that want to work hard, that want to innovate, build a business, and raise a family. That shouldn't be controversial, but at this point, increasingly, it seems that it is. So I really stand for that. There's a lot of people that feel like you have to be anti-immigrant or for immigrant, and I say, well, I'm for all people that want to come legally to the country, and I've seen a lot of positive feedback with that, and then particularly, I feel for people that are coming, and I'm a big supporter of more programs, particularly in our schools, for English as a second language, because a lot of people come and they do want to work. They are bright. They're innovators. They're business builders, but it's difficult if you have a language barrier. And this is actually an area where I think technology is really advancing that. And it's kind of full circle back to the AI. There's a lot of opportunity for AI-enabled education products to help people break down language barriers, and we'll all be better off if we can support that. So I think of myself as a little bit, I try to avoid being kind of put in a box, both in business and in political life of, well, this is just what you believe in and that's what you do. I try to be an independent thinker and really just empower individuals to have as much control over their life as possible. And that's the same work that we want to take to the AI landscape, which I think you've had a great kind of motto around this: enhance, not replace. There's a misconception here that AI is like a Terminator. It's gonna eliminate people, or it's the same kind of reticence that people have like with Bitcoin technology. You don't have to use it, but new technologies are a good thing in general if we allow people to innovate on top of them and good ideas to rise to the surface. So yeah, that's where my heart's at. That's why I'm excited to take this on and be part of the political process, because if you're not, then you really can't complain with the outcome that you get.
Yeah. So, I'm going to challenge you a little bit on your political positions.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
I'm going to be a CNN reporter now.
Oh gosh.
I'm going to be Anderson Cooper. So the counter argument to saying, hey, we just need the government to get out of the way and let local municipalities do the heavy lifting. So the counter argument would be something like a Flint, Michigan, where the local government made a complete mess and lots of children died from lead poisoning.
Yeah.
So then that's the argument of why you need regulation. Or there's examples of corporations dumping, or like the biggest example is Johnson & Johnson. Yep. With the whole talcum powder and laced with asbestos, and finally that case is coming to after God knows how many millions of people have been inflicted with ovarian cancer and testicle cancer because of that. Yeah. So, which I really commend, by the way, the attorney who led that. His name is Grossman, and he lives right here in Condado in Puerto Rico as well.
Oh, wow.
It's a great guy. Yes. So, but he fought the fight for 20 years to get that. to bring that to light, how bad it is. So, those kinds of examples lay the foundation for, well, we need more government regulation. We need the federal government to step in and take care of it. And especially for the people who aren't connected in the business world like you and I are, and don't have the perspective, right? And they're usually the victims of all of this mischief created by different players in the game. And so they feel so left out, right? And they need someone to speak for them. So what do you say to those people, that how their rights will be protected if we sort of, if the federal government lets loose and just sort of lets it all go?
Yeah, I think this is one of the central really issues of our time, because the federal government has grown so much. And I think the way I would characterize this challenge is no government entity, whether it's municipal, county, state, or federal, is ever going to be perfect all the time. And so I think a big part of the question here is what is our default posture towards something? What is the first kind of path of recourse for someone? And that is where my focus is. I do believe the way the United States was set up was a system of federalism, meaning it's the United States, the kind of critical entity that should be our default kind of point of governance are the states. I think that's the way that the Constitution was set up. And then in turn, I think that most states, and certainly freedom-oriented ones like Texas, should then try to localize as much as they can to allow people to govern themselves at a level where they have the best opportunity to actually interact with their representatives, rather than, at a federal level, it's much more challenging. However, what I'm not endorsing is a sort of federal anarchy of kind of total shutdown, because the cases that you point out are valid and frankly disturbing. So what that looks like is an iterative process that probably never ends, because we're always reacting and evolving to new information as it comes to light, and new kind of susceptibilities or failures require some kind of change or an address, at least, to injustices that have been perpetrated. Having said all of that, though, I do think always and everywhere that the first kind of line of governance should be at the state level, and I do think we've gone too far. The pendulum has swung too far towards having a federal bureaucracy that is quick to jump in and often take advantage of perhaps one instance of a shortcoming, whatever it may have been, and said, well, as a result of this, we now have new powers over all of these other industries. A huge recent case in the Supreme Court that really highlights this and has far-reaching ramifications that still haven't made their way all the way through our economy is the EPA versus West Virginia case. That, in a nutshell, what the Supreme Court really said there was, you cannot take some single ruling or single issue and extrapolate that and apply it more broadly to other industries or other players, because that's what we've seen in a lot of bureaucracies where, well, this was a problem here, there was an abuse that was related perhaps to, say, Johnson & Johnson. So we now have a new power to come up with enforcements and actions against anybody, anywhere, for a perceived kind of wrong. And that's where we have to be really careful. And so I think we're in the early stages of that pendulum is swinging back now, and more there's a recognition of kind of let's go back to the roots of the Constitution, which is less federal bureaucracy and more empowerment of the states.
So I'm going to summarize it this way. So what is the district number you're in?
70.
Okay, so District 70 in Texas, right? So if I'm living in District 70 and I'm unhappy about something Steve is doing, I know where to find him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have frequent events where it's not hard to find me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Whereas some bureaucrat in DC is making a decision that could have a life-changing impact.
Right.
He will remain nameless, faceless, and you become completely helpless.
Yep.
Right. So that's in a simple way, I think what you're saying is, would you rather not? You rather work with a faceless, nameless, you have no idea, you can't even go and speak to that person, protest about whatever decision they're making. Would you have that person have power over your life, or Steve, where, yeah, I know where he lives, he's down the block from me.
Yeah. I think I'll summarize it even more, because I think Vivek Ramaswamy's actually had a great succinct description of this, which is the people elected to run the government should actually run the government. Yeah. So if you elect a local person that lives in your district, they should be implementing that, not just whoever this person is in this bureaucracy in a place you can't find them. So yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah. So in other words, you want to know that the people you vote for, right, are the ones who are calling the shots. Okay. And that then you can hold them accountable. You don't want to give Stephen out. They say, well, I tried my best, but DC, some bureaucrat in DC is doing this, so it's out of my hands. Right? Don't give Stephen out. Hold him accountable. And the way you hold him accountable is you make sure he also has the ability to exercise those decisions. So like in the corporate world, I see this all the time. And I'm always, like in my organization, I'm always pushing everyone to say, okay, make a decision and do it and own it. Mm-hmm. Right? And whereas people want to say that they don't want to make a decision, they'd rather say this decision came from someone above me or somebody else. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, they want to say that there's a layer above me that made the decision, or they want to punt it to somebody else. Right? The harder the decision, the more people want to punt. That's just human nature. Right? So that's why I basically say, I said, you have in my organization, I say, you don't have anyone above you other than the customer. That's your only boss. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, I take that back. There's only one boss, and that's the big guy upstairs. That's the only one that you serve is the customer. So you have to make a decision that is best for the customer. So if you have a situation in front of you, only one you need to think about is you and the customer. And you make the decision, and right or wrong, I'm okay with it. Right? If you made a wrong decision and things went bad, that's okay. Yep. Right? But now you made a mistake, you have to clean up your own mess now. Right? Now, because you're accountable. Accountability means that you have to clean up your own mess, and because of that, people that they got to clean up their mess, right? And that's just life, right? If I take this glass and I drop it, okay, I'm not going to say, Steve, you're my representative, you have to go clean up this mess. No, I dropped that glass, I broke the glass, I made the mess, I have to clean it up, right? And that's the way it should be in your home, right? And I'm sure most people run their homes that way, and that's the way it should be in your, organization that you work in, okay? And why? Here's a novel idea: why shouldn't the government be that way? That the people that you vote for, you actually hold them accountable, and you can't hold them accountable unless you give them the power to do, You don't give them an out. We're not really saying give them the power. Don't give them an excuse. That's right. Right.
Yep. And you also have to vote in the elections. A lot of people don't vote, and so it's part of you have to be part of the process to hold them accountable. So.
Right. The other thing that I found that you said was interesting about the AI, using AI to translate languages, mm-hmm. And people don't realize how dangerous that is if AI is in the hands of the few, and if there is no open if it isn't open source, if it isn't available for open criticism and feedback and free debate, because language is very nuanced, right? And you could destroy an entire culture by mistranslating even just a select few words. If you mistranslate, the whole meaning and the essence of a culture can be destroyed.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because having better translation tools can break down so many barriers, but it is also very dangerous if you start to rely on a tool and just take it as universally true, good, right, don't question it. And I think this is the nature of a new debate that we're entering. Both in language, but now there's a lot of talk about like the deep fakes that AI can make. Well, I think as citizens, when you interact with something that you have to assume that AI may have had a role in this, and as a person view it through that lens, and you don't have to be kind of neurotic about it or scared all of the time. But you're right, if everybody sits back and just says this doesn't affect me, or I don't have time for this, or I don't want to learn about it, we are setting ourselves up to concentrate control over data and really what people consider to be true in the hands of very few people. And the probability that that ends well is very close to zero. And so I remain optimistic. I do think the technology, as long as we defend that free speech, open source innovation approach, I think it can be tremendously positive, increase productivity. So many businesses could be built on top of this. But there is a potential dystopian path there. And there's also, I think, an inclination for people to kind of promise the moon. Oh, AI is going to do all this. It's just going to automate everything. It's just not. It's really not. There's a lot of just overhype and promising. It's a phenomenal tool. It's advancing at an incredible pace where new things are coming out all of the time. But I really hesitate to embrace this ideology of, well, every business is just going to automate kind of 90% of what humans do, because it's just not the, you know, what I see. I think there was a lot of people talking that way when the internet first came out. Oh, this is going to eliminate all these different companies. There won't be any stores. It'll all just be 100% online. And of course that hasn't happened. So it's a similar thing with AI that we're going to do. The danger is there. I agree. But that's part of our work, and inviting people that are listening to this, be part of an innovative ecosystem that believes in transparency and open source and privacy if people want to control their own data. We shouldn't all have to participate in an ecosystem where your data is being mined for profit on a closed source basis for one or two companies.
So I want to give an example, a kind of relatable example of how dangerous mistranslation by AI can be. So I'm gonna do the English. I'm gonna say it in English, and so like if there was an agenda to distort the perspective of American culture to, say, Panamanians, right? And so you had a English to Spanish translation, and so we, you know, as you know, Angel, we have a number of surfers and skateboarders that we sponsor, and amazing athletes, right? And in that subculture, it's common to say, dude, that's sick, right? Which means, in that case, sick really means really good.
It's actually a good thing.
Right? Not a bad thing. But if purposely, right, now AIs today are smart enough to figure out that context and translate it correctly. So how would you translate that literally in Spanish? My Spanish is 0, and your Spanish is really good. And then how would you translate it to what it really means in Spanish?
Wow.
Good evening. I'm testing. I'm putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot. I think the literal translation would be, dude doesn't have a literal translation. Amigo, estás enfermado. Like, dude, you're sick. Like, that is sick. You're like, as in you're ill. Estás enfermado. Estás enfermo. But really what you want to say is, I think I would translate it as amigo me alegro. I'm happy. Like I'm happy for you. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
You know.
Mhm.
But your point, which I think me alegro would sufficiently incorporate that.
Mhm.
But you're making the point that, well, and in addition to that, if you ask someone else, they would say, I don't disagree that me alegro's good, but here's another way to look at it. So there's always, like you said, there's incredible nuance
Yeah.
in language. It's a good example.
Yeah.
I like the exercise.
Yeah. So the point is now, let's say you had some big tech company that had an agenda against a certain brand of skateboard, right? Because the manufacturer of the skateboard is politically disconnected
Yeah.
from them. It's going in a different direction. So they could change the algorithm. So every time a skateboarder said, man, that whatever Adidas skateboard is sick.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know if Adidas makes skateboards, so I apologize, Adidas. That Adidas skateboard is sick. They could translate that to mean the bad kind of sick instead of the good kind of sick, right? So now their worldwide sales would plummet.
Right.
Okay, so one little change in the algorithm, right, that is centrally controlled can have real economic consequences and can wipe out a company.
That's right.
Okay, so this is how important it is to keep AI free and open.
Well, and in that example, Pavan, you know, somebody, in this case Adidas, might protest and say, "Hey, what's going on here? There's all this stuff going on social media that we're sick, that we're doing something wrong." And when a company's rolling stuff out on a closed source basis, and we've seen this in social media with the social media algorithms, they'll just say, "Well, no, we're not doing that." And you can say, "Well, yes, you are," but you have no recourse because you can't see what's in the model. Yeah. And so there's nothing you can do at that point. And that's where we don't want to get, because, you know, we allowed that in social media, and it cost whatever, $44 billion for Elon Musk to buy Twitter to reorient us back towards a place of open discourse. And that could have been largely avoided with a more engaged community in the early chapters of social media. So great example.
Actually, I'll give you another example. Actually, this is a real world example. It happened to a soap company in India. So they had a simple ad, which is a dirty shirt, and then their soap product, and then a clean shirt. Mm-hmm. Right? And that ad ran a lot in India, and it was great. Their sales went through the roof, and then they wanted to expand into the Middle East. Okay, and they ran the same ad, and the sales plummeted. And they're sitting there scratching their head. Why would this ad not work in the Middle East? You have any guesses?
That is way outside my familiarity. I can't even guess. No.
So here's the funny part. In Arabic, you read from right to left, not left to right. So what they saw was a clean shirt, the soap, and a dirty shirt. Right? That's a translation problem.
Wow.
Yeah. Right? Okay, so that's like, so words are incredibly powerful. It's like it changes everything. Just a slight change in words can change the whole perspective of a population. Yep. Right? And this is the impact on a product, on consumer spending on a particular product, mm-hmm. But it could change the whole perspective on policy. Yep. And that has real life impact and to how people live and your economics, how much you make. So simple thing like this, and AI goes way beyond translation. It does so much more, right? So if it isn't kept open, kept on the blockchain, available for public inspection and free, unhindered debate. Someone can say, "Hey, no, sick doesn't mean ill here. It means, your translation algorithm. Why do you have this exception in your code that says if it's Adidas, translate it this way, right? This stuff should be open and available for people to see, and this is why, open source platforms are so valuable." So, and we were talking about that a little bit before this podcast. Can you talk about some of the open source platforms that you're experienced with and and how they are changing or helping push a positive impact, a positive agenda in this space.
Yeah, so I'm going to give two examples that are just really interesting in terms of what's going on within the AI landscape right now. So the first is a French company, actually, that's called Mistral, Mistral, Mistral AI, that was co-founded by a group of people that left Google some years ago. And while there's not a lot of public kind of commentary around that, the central mission of Mistral is to build open source AI. And the central mission of Google from early on has been primarily to build closed source AI. So it doesn't take a whole lot for you to gather why this group of people probably left Google to start this new entity. But what's remarkable about it is they raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know, a lot of people said this can't be done. It's not something people are going to want. And they're really shattering that notion by putting these models out there. And in fact, many people are downloading them, using them, fine-tuning them, applying them in business kind of applications. And one example is what we were talking about is the Brave browser, which is an internet browser, privacy-oriented browser. And they've embedded the main Mistral model, which is called Mixtral, into that browser that can help you to summarize and analyze websites that you're viewing on a privacy first basis with a model that if for X, Y, or Z reason you didn't like it or you had an issue with it, it's open source. And so you can go if you were inclined and learn more about it directly yourself. You don't have to ask anyone for permission. So that's one example. The other is we were talking about social media. So Facebook rebranded to Meta. One of Meta's big initiatives is AI, but what's been so interesting about that is they've taken a path where they're investing foundation models that they've called Llama, and their third iteration, the Llama 3 model, just dropped, and they've determined that the best path forward is to open source that. So they've taken a totally different approach to that kind of, to building that ecosystem within Facebook to other companies. And so it is possible to take that product and use it, and you don't have to be with, you know, kind of trapped within the Facebook ecosystem. And there's a lot of interesting debate, you know, is that going to work as a business model? I probably don't agree politically with Mark Zuckerberg, probably ever, but I think that's the point, is that we do agree actually on the importance of having that open source and allowing free speech and innovation to live. So it's pretty amazing. That model just came out last week, so this just happened, and people are reviewing it and interacting with it, and it's you know, there's a lot of momentum around that. Of these open source models are competing right alongside the Chat GPTs and the Claude from Anthropic and other models that have received billions of dollars of investment on a closed source basis. And I'll just say, look, if a business wants to use a closed source model, you can, that's a business decision that you can make. But what we cannot allow is for regulatory actions to be taken that stamp out the open source side of things, that act as a check, even if you choose to use closed source models. So that's really the core of this. And that's just two examples. There's a lot of other companies, and I'm sorry for those I've left out. I want to learn about those too. But those are two big ones that are making huge waves right now in the marketplace. And they're proving, maybe most importantly, what I'll stress, they are proving that open source foundation models can compete and win alongside closed source foundation models in the enterprise business space. And so that's kind of been a myth. You got to close it, and the only way you can build a viable business is on a closed source basis. Well, these companies are really shattering that and showing that that's not the case.
Yeah. So, and I think in itself, the fact that Facebook open sourced Llama, there's a reason for that, which is nuanced, that people tend to miss. And the whole reason that they did it is because they have to compete, right? And they have the ChatGPT had this big head start over Facebook and the other companies. So how do you catch up? So by making this vibrant marketplace where you keep companies competing with each other, and no one or two companies have a complete lockdown and monopoly on a particular technology, right? That forced Facebook to take this open source route, which helps all of us, right? So, and their idea is that if I make it open source, I can get all these developers looking at it, get the whole community looking at it, and
Exactly.
and now we as Facebook stay relevant in the AI space, because they realized that by themselves they couldn't catch up. They needed the world to help them. So that's why they open sourced it. That's I don't, never met Mark. I have no idea what he's thinking, but I would say if I was running Facebook and I was in that situation where I'm, basically a generation behind ChatGPT, I would do that.
Yep.
That would be pretty much the best choice.
Yep.
Out there.
And he's proving to be right. I mean, it's really catching momentum. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And full disclosure, we do use some parts of Llama and AngelAi. It does a little bit for us. So on the sidebar, I get asked this question all the time. So how does AngelAi's AI model actually work? Right. So it's actually a very different model. We don't use large language models. We use them a little bit. We use Llama a touch for some of the simple things like grammar cleanup and context analysis. But the real engine of AngelAi is a neural net based engine, and it's based on the concept of little tiny neural nets, little tiny cells that make little tiny decisions, like micros. If you were to put it in, if you were to make decisions if you were to map decisions to a physical scale, they'd be like a little tiny microscopic decision. Like, so if you're trying to walk a straight line, it'd be like little turns, little microscopic turns, that keeps adjusting you a little bit here, a little bit there, so that when you look at the whole from a macro level and look at the line, it looks like a straight line. Okay, so that's how AngelAi works. So because our goal, our requirement is different. It's less generative AI where it's just creating new creative output, but it's more about exact answers, right? Because it's financial. I need to know exactly what the balance of my bank account is. I need to know exactly if I have enough money in my bank account to qualify for this mortgage. I need to know exactly how much, given my income and given my debt, does it meet Fannie Mae guidelines to qualify for this loan, right? So to do that, you can actually break it down into a million little decisions, a million little cells that make little tiny decisions, and then you walk that straight line to the end conclusion. So that's how AngelAi works. So I got lost. Talking about all this tech, and I got
We
got
came
lost.
into that because you
Yeah.
were saying there was a llama connection.
Yes,
But not
yeah.
so much in a generative capacity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So AngelAI, it's taken a long time to develop. It went into production 2018. A lot of you may have already know the story, but those who don't, came into production first in 2018, and since then we've done over 200,000 mortgage transactions through it. And we put the warranty on, the 100% trusted warranty since 2019, which basically says if it made a wrong decision, if it gave you a loan approval when it shouldn't have, we'll proceed forward and in any case, and we'll balance sheet that loan, assuming that the loan approval was based on information that he gave was accurate. Right. If you give it false information, well, then
that's on you.
Yeah. So yeah. Remember, everything else in life, in AI or anything you do in life, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you're trying to lose weight and you put garbage into your mouth, you're gonna have a garbage body like this, right? But if you put in good stuff in and you work hard, you're gonna look like Jake Paul. So. Right. So it's ultimately, to close off, and we're coming up to the hour here, to close off on the debate of AI versus life versus is it going to terminate us all? it all ultimately boils down to if you let yourself get terminated, right? And what I mean by that means if you don't accept personal responsibility and your personal, everyone has duties. You have duties to yourself, to your family, to your community, right? And if you don't do your duties then you just yield that control over to a third party, whether it's an AI or whether it's a government or somebody else, and you just don't want to take responsibility and do your duties, then you've just terminated yourself anyway. It doesn't matter what mechanism terminated you, whether it was an AI or the government or something else. It's just you've mentally terminated, right? And it's just a matter of now when, not a matter of if or how. It's just a matter of when. So ultimately, it boils down to doing your homework, taking responsibility, doing what you're supposed to do to take care and raise your family and your community correctly. Everything else works out automatically.
Well said, Pavan. And yeah, look, in closing, I'm excited to be a part of this. The time is now. It's an important venue to create for innovators and people to come together to talk about this. I want to encourage everyone, go to innovationconnect.ai, innovationconnect.ai. Our first member call will be May 17th, virtual member call at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. That's free and open to everyone. We're trying to bring in as many people that are interested in this as possible. And we're just building a new movement that I think is going to be something really positive, a really impactful network. And so again, just go to innovationconnect.ai. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Steve Kinard, and you can ping me there. And just thank you to everyone. The feedback has been tremendously positive. Thank you, Pavan, and just excited to take the next step on this adventure.
Can you spell your last name?
Kinard.
So Steve Kinard.
Yes, sir.
On LinkedIn.
Yes, sir.
All right. And everyone in Texas District,
House District 70.
House District 70, vote for Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. All right.
Well, thanks,
Cheers.
Steve, for being on, sharing your insights and perspective here on Pavan's Perspective. We wish you safe travels back home. And Pavan, where are you going to be next? Where can the people find you?
I'm in Puerto Rico for the next two. I'm in Puerto Rico for the next 2 weeks, and then I'm at Bill Pipe's event in Orlando. I think that's on May 6th, 7th, 8th. And then I think on the 9th, I'm in Miami at David Kerr's Freedom Achievers event. So first week of May is Florida. Then I'm back in Puerto Rico for a week. Then I'm off to France and then India.
All right. Well, keep an eye on Pavan's social media to see when he's going to be at an event in your area, and just keep in the loop with all the exciting things we've got going on here with AngelAi. And one last time, Steve, share the website for AI Innovation Council.
Innovationconnect.ai.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining.
All right. Cheers.